Hello and welcome to Bothering Strangers with Max Hearing. I'm Max Hearing. My guest today, you might have seen her on Wildnout, or you might have seen her in the New York City comedy scene. My guest today is comedian Maddy Smith. Maddy, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for coming on.
No
I,
worries.
I actually I really like the background you're working with.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
the curtain. Um, that's pretty much it.
that's pretty much it. Yeah. So you started a new podcast that
Yeah.
time of the week, like just a couple weeks ago.
Yes, that time of the week with Maddy Smith, me, and it's all girls. So if you guys hate women, it won't work out. But if you like women a little bit, it is me and a rotating panel every week of girls talking current events and just shooting the shit. It's on video too, which is cool.
I mean, I feel like most podcasts are on video. This goes obviously on YouTube and Apple, Spotify.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's always the move. So how does it work with the rotating panel girls? Do you just like call up people, try to get
Yeah.
them on, schedule like book it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have like a couple who are kind of like regulars and you'll see them like every other episode, and then every so often I'll throw in a couple new people. And I mean, we're only like 4 episodes in, so I'm trying to figure out like what the best combo of people is, but it's a different vibe every episode, which is cool.
I have watched it and I've seen that you're in on like a studio space in person.
Yeah, it's just my kitchen. It's where I'm sitting right
Oh, oh, it's your kitchen. Okay, I was about to say, uh, what is? I mean, was that kind of a decision? Because like in the pandemic, I think as far as podcast goes, it's been a decision whether it's like, oh, should we do it in person? Should we do it on Zoom?
So it's in person, and I actually get tested every week, and I also don't leave my house. And
Mm.
then I kind of like all the gals who have been on it also don't leave their house. Everyone I know has a 9 to 5 and works from home. I don't have a lot of friends either. So I kind of have like a rotating list of 10 people. And then if they do something, they have to get tested before they come on. So it's pretty regular, and it's only 3 people. But if we go on lockdown, then I'll switch to virtual.
Oh yeah, you're in New York. You're not on lockdown.
Yeah. So
I,
it's we're cool to do like the 3 person inside because we're kind of all in the same little pods. But if we go on lockdown, not the end of the world. Um, but it's cool to do in person because the video is what pops off your podcast, in my opinion.
yeah, I don't know why people aren't doing video. Honestly,
Um,
like some people aren't doing it. I just don't understand that.
it just like adds to your audience, even if it's just a Zoom video. It helps so much.
Well, every episode of mine has been a Zoom video. So
That's great. And I'm thinking of starting like an interview show where it's kind of like more serious than my podcast. And it would be virtual too. And people watch that. And you can caption them, throw them on Instagram and stuff. It's great.
I'm starting one too actually next week.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
For this, it's like a special edition. I'm announcing it now. I guess it's called 30 minutes max,
That's great.
and it's kind of funny, but it's also like short form, like 30 minutes or less. So I'm editing them down,
Mhm.
but very serious.
I like the name.
It's mine. So
Yeah.
bothering strangers, 30 minutes max.
Yeah.
So what about obviously you were a cast member on Wild and Out last 2 seasons. It's been canceled right now, but we'll see what goes on, in the next coming months.
Mm.
How did that work? I saw your video on YouTube with the auditions.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
How accurate was that video?
Pretty accurate. I auditioned last year, and I saw a post that asked for roast battlers and rap battlers to audition for Wild and Out, and that's pretty much what happened. I just auditioned, and then I went down to Atlanta for like a week long workshop where they kept cutting people and re-auditioning people until right up until the season started recording. And so you go through like a huge like audition, callback, workshop process until they decide that you're a good fit for the show. And then once the season starts recording, they also continue to like bring people in and cut people. So it's pretty cutthroat.
Like, one day you wake up and like don't come back.
Pretty much. You'd come to breakfast the next day and people would be like, hey, Sean is gone. And you're like, oh shit, I got to work on my stuff.
You're like, oh, I thought he was so good. Now he's gone.
Yeah. And it keeps you on your toes. It's very stressful.
How many people started this was in 2018, I think.
2019.
2019. Okay. So how many people were there, like at the beginning, roughly, I should say?
Aside from like the veterans of the cast, all the new people, it was like 40 people.
40 people, and I think they only added
They cut it down to like
2.
it was like a mixed new group of like people who had been on for less than 2 seasons. So it was like new people and then the new people who were kind of like auditioning for the show. So that was like 40 people. And then they cut some people who had already done seasons. And so then that got down to like 5 people or something.
Was Wild Not one of those shows that you'd been watching for a while before you auditioned?
No, I don't have cable. I don't watch a lot of TV. Mostly before I auditioned, I was working 9 to 5 and doing stand up at night for 3 years. So I never really watched TV ever since like high school. I watched it in high school at like sleepovers and stuff, but even like people's stand up specials and late night sets, I never watched. I never had time.
Wow, that's the fact you just said you watched in high school. It just shows like that it's been around.
It's been around,
It's
yeah.
been around, you know.
Yeah.
I was late to discover the show. I found out about it when I was in college, so it had already been on for like 10 years at that point.
Yeah. College, yeah. Yeah, I was watching it in like 2007, I think. And
Oh,
I was
the early days.
yeah, the early one. And then it came back and then I met Jacob Williams and then I was like, "Oh shit, it's on again. Interesting."
Jacob Williams. He was a great guest in this one.
Yeah, he's great.
I've talked to Tim. I talked to him about this. I talked to Tim Delegate about this. His swag on the show from when he started to when he ended was so much. He had so much more swag at the end.
Totally. He started with like nerdy glasses and terrible sneakers. By the end, he was wearing Nikes. Great glow up.
I've never seen a glow up like that big.
Yeah, he's great.
He was great. He was great on the show. Did you develop like kind of like a cult following sort of thing, being like one of the few white cast members on Wild and
Yeah,
Out?
I don't know if it's cult. I would just say it's general Wild and Out fandom.
General Wild and Out fandom.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cult following, although I have had a lot of people comment that I'm their favorite. So I guess me being their favorite within the Wild and Out fandom is pretty culty.
That's a big deal. There are a lot of people. A lot of people have come through.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of like really good comments like that, which was cool because I make pretty white jokes on the show and I don't fit in. So that's good to hear.
After the twerking, yes.
Yeah.
But you owned it though. I think that's what they liked about it.
Hmm. Yeah, if you go on that show with confidence and you laugh at yourself and you just kind of go with the flow, you'll be way more appealing than if you like get hurt over roasts or get flustered over delivery. If you have confidence and you can laugh at yourself, that's all you need.
If you're getting hurt over roast, I don't think you should be on the show.
No, me neither.
Because the roasts are so surface level too, I find.
Yeah, they're surface level, and I've also been in the roast battle scene in New York City for years, and I've heard way worse shit there.
Oh my
So
God, yeah.
yeah, you know,
I forgot about that, but yeah, absolutely.
yeah, when you come to Wild and Out, they just say generic ways that you're a white person, and you're like, okay, no problem. People have told me to like kill myself, so I don't care.
Yeah, because it's for cable.
Yeah, totally, and
You
it's
have
like
to limit it.
it's very playful. So that's why it's like someone was like, does that hurt you? I'm like, no, it's as long as you're laughing and they're laughing, that's like a TV moment.
I feel like some of the roasts when you watch them, and maybe this is just because like the editing, like that could very much be it. Like some roasts were like very like okay, but then the audience would be like, oh, and the audience like lose it, and I would just kind of sit like, it was
Yeah,
fine, it was regular, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes it depends on the audience. Sometimes they flip a shit over some basic shit, and that happens in roast battle too.
You just never know how the audience is gonna respond, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wild and Out, obviously we were talking about before, it like really increased your like social media base,
Hmm.
your overall like I guess like social media brand you could call it.
Yeah.
Did you
To-
expect that?
Um, yeah, I think so. I mean, I know people when I started to be on the show, everyone on the show has like hundreds of thousands of followers, so I figured that would happen from me being on the show. So it's kind of just intuitive, yeah.
Is the problem now like how do you like convert those followers into like your real life and then also like how do you like build followers from like other areas that aren't Wild and Out?
Yeah, I guess it's just balancing like delivering to the people who follow you from Wild and Out, and then also expanding that audience without excluding your current followers.
Ah, demographics.
Yeah, totally.
That's
So it's
that's a
hard,
tough
but
one.
it could be worse. I mean, I used to work in finance, so I'm thankful that I don't have to do that anymore.
Is that why you moved to New York?
I moved to New York for a job, but it wasn't in finance. But then I started a job in finance a couple years after I moved here.
So where are you from originally?
I'm from Buffalo.
Oh, okay. Upstate New York. Yeah. I've never been to Buffalo.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm gonna go. My dad's from New Jersey, so like I grew up, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, we're in New Jersey.
like central, small. It was small growing up. It's called Lakewood, New Jersey, if that
Yeah,
rings any
and if you have
bells.
no reason to go to Buffalo, you probably never will. Rough place.
Is there a good stand-up scene there or
There's a Helium, but there's not a lot of comedians there. And I think the upstate comedians they drive from Buffalo to Syracuse, and you have to like go to the different cities to get a full scene. There's comedians there, but there's not stuff going on every night.
so were you basically like I'm gonna go to New York after college? Was that kind of where your head was at the whole time you were growing up in Buffalo?
No, I went to college upstate, and then I um worked in a job upstate, and then I moved down to New York for another job. That's pretty much it.
Hmm. It's fair. So we were talking about this before. The New York City stand-up scene in the pandemic. It's happening,
Hmm.
but obviously like, it's it's January now and it's colder. Um, are your opinions that like it shouldn't be happening as much because of like the pandemic or
Yeah, I mean, I understand people want to keep their dream going, and I'm doing outdoor shows and stuff on the podcast. Or sorry, I'm doing outdoor shows and stuff, but it also feels like a little weird knowing like the rates up to like 10% now.
wow, I didn't even
Um,
know that.
COVID is worse than it was before. I haven't seen anything about indoor shows lately, which is good because they were happening for a while in December. But for me, it's like I'll do the outdoor shows, but I love a cancellation because it's cold and all the outdoor shows are far away from where I live. So that's pretty much it. I mean, people are going to do it no matter what, but it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make anyone any money. No one's making money off of these shows. I understand if your motivation is money, but when it's just to perform, I'm like, you weren't meant to do this.
That was my next question. My next question was where like what's the money because people aren't going out as much. So I also feel like that's kind of affecting your motivation.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't, but they're also just unpaid bars. They're just like free shows.
Oh, like open mics
No,
or
just
or they're
like shows.
booked.
Yeah,
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, no, that
yeah,
makes sense. I love that you said I love a cancellation.
yeah. It's
I've never
great. I
I've
mean,
never heard it.
it's like 30 degrees here. It feels very when it's like 7 p.m. and you have to go out to a show, it's like, why are we doing this?
I'm trying to understand why if you're not a comedian you would want to go out. Like
I don't.
to spend a whole night outside on purpose to
Well, in New
watch
York, I'm
comics.
stuck in since March. I think people like having a reason to go out, and I mean, some of the shows are fun because there's heat lamps and stuff, and people who live in New York, they want to be out and they want to be social. So I get it. If I wasn't a comedian, I wouldn't go to the shows, but I get people going.
Like I wouldn't even listen to myself.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Did you read this article? It came out like months ago. This guy in the New York Times put out an op-ed basically saying he's like, New York's dying. It's dead. People are leaving the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't think it was the New York Times. I think Jerry Seinfeld wrote back in the New York Times, but the
Oh
original
yeah.
one was, but that was James Altucher, and I mean, he obviously is like a business guy. He knows what he's talking about. I don't think New York is going to bounce back from this anytime soon. No one really lives in Manhattan.
But like dying, I mean, that
If you
seems
came
like
to
a
New
bit
York,
much.
you know what it's like here, you would be like shocked. It's
Maybe
literally
because like no one's on the streets.
because people left Manhattan.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I haven't been to New York in like 10
So that's what
years.
I was saying in the article. He was saying people are leaving Manhattan and no one needs to work here. Everyone's working from home. Everyone who had a job here is now in a different place. And companies who own all these buildings aren't gonna re-sign their lease to people because no one wants to have an office in 2021.
Well, I should have read the whole article. That's what I'm learning right now.
That's what he's saying is there is not really a necessity for New York. Before you would move to New York for finance or fashion or a bunch of corporate jobs, but now the corporate jobs are saying, oh, we might not need the office space anymore and everyone's productive working from home, and now people aren't living in New York, so it's crime is high like it was in the 70s and 80s, and so it'll probably take a long time for New York to bounce back fully.
But New York's not the only place that's happening. That's happening in the Bay Area with like Silicon Valley right now.
Yeah,
Like people
but
are literally
Silicon
moving to
Valley,
Tulsa.
but New York is a place where when all the rich people leave, it turns into chaos. If all the rich people leave Silicon Valley, that's just empty buildings.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're right. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't think that far ahead.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a shelling out. And yeah, it is pretty weird out there right now. But I mean, I think ultimately it'll be fine. The tourists will come back at some point. But it's going to be like a minute. They said like 2025 tourism will be coming back fully.
It's 4 years from now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's okay. That's something. Where
Yeah.
what borough are you in?
I live in Queens.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're not in Manhattan. Was it so I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. So I just like people are leaving and
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of precursor.
I think the precursor is the rich people leaving, because the rich and people not working in their 9 to 5s. Like most of Manhattan and all the restaurants there are fueled by people working 9 to 5s.
Mm,
No one's in their office.
I didn't know that. Well,
Yeah.
now I'm getting a lesson here. Every episode I don't really know what I'm gonna learn, but I always know I'm gonna learn something,
Yeah, that's great.
and I oftentimes end up getting like really schooled.
So I just live here, so I know what's going on.
Sure, sure. What's like? Does that include like the stand-up scene? Because that's obviously like what are people thinking? Do you think it's gonna come right back in full force once the pandemic's over?
Um, I don't know. A lot of the clubs I work at rely on tourism, and so we'll see. But also, people are ready to go see live events, so I think it'll come back pretty quickly. Everyone is ready to go to the theater and to go to the movies and to go see comedy. So I think it'll be tough without tourists, but also people are ready to go to comedy. whereas maybe regular New Yorkers before weren't going out and about and seeing shows as much. So it's a mix.
I also feel like people always want to laugh. Like that's the thing with
Yeah,
stand up is like no one's never gonna be like, I don't want to laugh. No, thank you.
yeah, definitely.
And that's
So
why
I think
you.
that'll go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's why you have clubs in these like places in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. The hard thing about New York clubs is I don't know how much longer some of them can hold on because it's expensive to pay rent without any revenue. So, that's what people are dealing with.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Have any of the big ones closed? Any of the big like kind of historic comedy clubs?
Well, there's the Creek and the Cave, which is more of like an alt venue in Queens that closed. And I've heard kind of rumors of the comic strip closing and Dangerfield's closed. So not really current, like those two last one, Dangerfield's and the comic strip, I think might have been struggling before the pandemic, but it is pretty alarming to see clubs closing.
You brought up something that I actually don't know anything about. The alt comedy scene.
Hmm.
I've like heard about it through like like whispers.
Hmm.
Was it strong in New York before the pandemic?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, any sort of venue that's not really a club is pretty much considered alt. And so there's literally like 1,000 non-club shows every month.
Were you performing at some of those alt shows?
Yeah.
So what was the difference? Like, what do you think was the difference in terms of just alt comedy versus like what you might just call mainstream comedy, stand-up comedy in this case?
Um, well, I just think like the clubs have more tourists and stuff in them, and then the other venues have more New Yorkers who live there. And that's pretty much the big difference. And so you kind of have to expand on what you're saying for a tourist crowd. Whereas if they're New Yorkers, you can kind of just like get to the point.
So I asked around about the alt comedy scene in like California about like a year ago, and it's
Hmm.
not the same out here
Hmm.
because like it exists, but it's not. It's harder to come by,
Hmm.
and apparently it really attracts like a certain type of person that I couldn't quite. No one quite told me what it was, but they said like all of us here right now outside of this open mic, we're not going to the alt shows.
Hmm.
So is that kind of is it the same thing in New York where like a lot of the people there, you would never see it like a comedy club, for instance?
I guess, but most people in New York are just trying to get on stage. I think there maybe used to be more of that divide between alt and club, but now it's like I most people are kind of dabbling everywhere. Some people just only stay in Brooklyn, but that's just because mostly because they just live there and they like free open mics and they like the vibe of the shows. It's not really anything political or anti-club. It's just kind of like where you start and where you end up. I mean, there's so many different mini scenes in New York that no one's really against each other. It's just naturally where you start and where you end up.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like who are those guys? The Lucas Bros. Those two twin.
Yeah.
They're pretty alt, I would say
Yeah. I mean, they're famous now.
now, but
Um,
like I,
yeah.
the way they perform too. That's why I think about it.
Yeah. Definitely people like them. And it's kind of all blending together now, though. I mean, as long as you're funny, you can just keep going up. It doesn't really matter if you're in clubs or alternate venues.
Sounds like a good thing.
Yeah.
Comedy, like for a while, I don't know too much about the history, but like it was known as like a lower kind of form of entertainment compared to like acting, as in just an example.
Yeah. I mean, we are definitely the lowest rung of entertainment. Um, when I said celebrities, I meant like actors and singers and stuff like that.
Why
I
do you
didn't really
think
call it.
why do you think stand up is the lowest rung of entertainment?
Because people don't respect it. People don't
Yeah.
realize that it's.
Is that it? Is it just like people look at someone go up on stage like, oh, I could do that, and make the same jokes and do better than them
Probably.
without ever doing stand up?
No, I think people just go to a stand-up show, they get enjoyment out of it for an hour, and then they go home, and that's it. And for most people, it's just an hour of entertainment. And then there's some people who are like intense comedy fans who respect and appreciate, but for most people, it's just a night of entertainment, and then they go home.
I never thought about it like that, and now I have to like reassess everything.
Yeah, it's just like another fun thing to do. But a movie, you get involved with the person mentally, and um, you have a crush on them, and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that might be it. And it looks easier than it is, so people don't go home like worshiping that person.
Yeah, I can see too. But I mean, I feel like that might be changing a little bit because you have some comedians who they kind of built their fame or their base through like YouTube, for instance.
Mhm.
And then they grew like a base through there. Like a Trevor Wallace right now would be a perfect example of this. LA guy, uh, good comic, but like his fame came from YouTube.
Mhm.
And that's at least pre-pandemic. That was what was getting him booked shows.
Mhm.
So even though people are like, oh, he's a good comic, they're like, I feel like I have some sort of insight into his life that I don't have with other comics.
Yeah, true. I don't know what the question is.
Well, I mean, do you think like it's changing a little bit because of like people like that?
Yeah, I would say, but he's one in a million. Him, Andrew Schultz, and like a few other people are, but for the most part, if you go to a club show and you're just a regular non-comedy watching audience member, you won't know the people on the lineup, or you will have not heard of them.
Yeah, that's
And it's
it
moving more
happens to me.
toward that, but the YouTube fame is pretty hard to do, and not as many people do it.
No, there really are only a couple who've like kind of cracked the code.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, I didn't keep you for too long.
You seem bored. Are you okay?
Am I bored? No,
Yeah.
no, I'm distracted. I'll tell you what's happening. I'm distracted because I'm unemployed. So basically, what happens is I think about like my YouTube too much,
Okay.
and then I get distracted, and I'm fine, relatively speaking, as far as like a pandemic goes.
Mhm.
But I graduated from college seven in May, and it's January now, so it's 8 months, I guess, right?
Well, I don't think thinking about your YouTube will help.
No, 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 no.
Mhm.
That's exactly the problem.
All you have to do
So
is make stuff if you want it to grow.
yeah, I'm not sure what I want though. You
Yeah.
know, even all these jobs. I don't know if you can relate to this. I'm curious if you can relate to this. Did you know what you wanted to do like out of college, job wise?
No, just kind of had an idea. I mean, when I graduated college, I was working actually in at a nonprofit, and I knew I kind of wanted to do that, and then I left that, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
That was out of college. You were working for a nonprofit.
Hmm.
How long were you there?
A year.
Oh, okay. And that was after you're like, okay, my time's done. My time's up here.
I got another job in New York City, and I moved here.
Okay.
Hmm.
I was applying for all these jobs like in May, June, July, and now I'm like, do I even want to do these jobs anymore?
I would not overthink. I think money is key, and not
Yeah.
feeling like you have to have an identity with every decision you make. I think you should outline what you want, what you need, which is money, and then how, and what you also want is spare time from your job to allow you to continue to do comedy. But money is gonna get you what you need.
Yes. It's
Is what
true.
I,
And I don't have a lot of it.
yeah, having a lot of money helps mental health, helps
It's
creativity because you're
it's like
not,
peace of mind, right?
yeah.
Did that change for you once? Because you quit your job after Wild and Out. So once the Wild and Out checks came in with your stand up checks, it was like, oh, more peace of mind because I'm doing I'm doing what I like.
Pretty much. There's been some chaos of like, oh, when's the next? But then once you get like a lot of savings and you feel comfortable, you can start playing with that a little bit. But until you do that, it's gonna be like before I did Wild and Out and I was 9 to 5, it was like every set I did determined my life outlook. Like if I had a bad
Wow.
set, I'd be like, "This is why you're not done with your 9 to 5 anymore." But now it's like, if I have a bad set, it's like, "Oh, this is my full time job, and it's just a bad night." It used to
Wow.
be like really up and down.
Have you had those moments though since you've been full time where you've been like, what if I don't get enough gigs to pay my rent?
Um, a little bit, but then something comes along, and I also have a boyfriend who I live with who would never let me.
Oh,
You know, I have like a safety net of him. Not like a safety net, but like I would, if I have enough savings where I could foresee, if I burned through all my savings without foreseeing that happening, then that would be insane.
well, yeah, I could definitely see that. Was it when the pandemic started and all your gigs like got canceled, like all the comedians say?
Hmm.
Was there like a little moment of like, oh man, this is tough. Gotta make some huge pivots now.
Definitely was a weird time. I think I didn't realize how long it was gonna last. So I was like, all right, that's 2 months out of work, no
Oh,
problem.
no one knew. My dad and I called mine and said he was like, it'll be done in 2 weeks.
Right. If they told me at the beginning of the March it would be over a year, then I probably would have killed myself. But when you have that just another mentality, you're like, okay, I guess I'll have enough money, you know?
You think you ever would have created your podcast that time of the week though, had there not been a pandemic?
No, I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
I probably would have just done stand up and wouldn't even have had like a digital presence. So I think it's, there's some ways that it helps you refocus and learn about that other stuff. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been a tough ride.
Well, maybe when it's all said and done, you'll be like happy it happened. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what
I was
happens.
trying. I was trying to say something like deep and philosophical. And I'm like, where am I going with this? Like, I don't
Yeah,
think this is the right way.
there's some positives of it, with stand up, especially once you get a credit, it's like go, 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 and there's not really any downtime. And I never really got to kind of like work out new stuff because I was always just like trying to crush. And now I have like a more stable mentality.
Stable. So like, as in like, kind of like what you're talking about. Like, if you have a bad night, like it's just a bad night. And
Yep. Writing new stuff, trying new stuff, not really caring what happens.
what was your if when you think back, what was like the worst show Mike booked, like open mic booked that you ever did?
Um, I don't know. Maybe probably some sort of. I mean, there was like a couple Binghamton gigs that were pretty bad where I drove 3 hours for $50 to perform for 9 people. But I don't know. Everything's. There's a lot of bad shows. I can't pinpoint the most bad one.
I feel like once you do a certain amount of shows, like for yourself, I don't know
Yeah.
how like you're performing hundreds of shows a year, like in when it's not a pandemic, I should say.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
one bad show for me that really sticks out, but that's also because I haven't done that much stand up.
Hmm. What
Like,
happened?
um, it was just like really, really early on, like when I was like getting into open micing before, and this was way before the pandemic. And I like kind of went up at this bar in Orange County, and I don't know, my attitude must have been like thrown off or something because I started like making these jokes I was making the week before, very, very like racial humor that, and like the joke I wouldn't make this joke anymore anyway, just because like it's not very funny. Now I can say that, and
Hmm.
the crowd, like I saw the crowd turn on me immediately. And then like when you're a new comic, if you're creating like you start like adjusting your jokes, and like I still struggle with this. I don't like you don't have the confidence like full to continue on with your joke and like believe in yourself throughout a set.
Yeah, it's hard.
So just
Definitely.
like yeah, so just like jumping around, I was looking. I'm like, is this good? Is this joke good? Is this joke good? And like none of them landed.
It's rough, but you gotta move on and just tell yourself it didn't happen so that it doesn't make you nervous in the future.
It honestly did, and that was the thing. I thought it was gonna like mess up my mental like attitude regarding stand up. where I was like, I don't know if I can do it like again, and not think about this. But then like whenever, I don't know when I did the next show was, probably a couple of days after that, like a week after that, whenever it was, I was like, all right, it happened. Like,
As long as you can move on, because it's inevitable that it'll happen. And it'll happen 10 years in, 20 years in. You just have to keep moving.
I did learn that I should never do a eulogy at the beginning of my stand-up set, though. That was a mistake I once made, and
Wait,
one that I would definitely not do. Do you say why?
the eulogy?
Yeah, that was I had this big plan one day when I did a stand-up set the day that Kobe died, to be like, let me like say something in honor of Kobe.
Okay.
I shouldn't say anything. I should have just kept it. I shouldn't have mentioned it.
It's generally good to say nothing.
I know, because immediately they're like, why is he like, he's up here for 15 minutes? Why is he doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to just kind of just go with what you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I know that now, but like
Now you know. That's all that matters.
I feel like you have to have these moments where you suck and where you like just don't, because eventually you'll be like, well, that so don't do it again.
Hmm. Yeah, you need them. I agree.
And then, hopefully we don't, you know, do them again. But so these Binghamton shows that you were talking about, the ones with 9 people,
Hmm.
what were your expectations? Like, what did you think? Did you think there were going to be more people? Were you
Yeah,
told there were more people?
there was a lot of people who were gonna come. So when you drive 3 hours thinking there's gonna be 50 people, and then there's 9, you kind of hate yourself.
So it brings up an interesting topic, though, because then how do you, I guess this comes down to managing expectations.
Hmm.
So how do you like slow yourself down and kind of put yourself in mindset, okay, there aren't 50 people, there are 9, but I'm here.
Yeah, you just go up and do your set, and then you say, "Okay, I won't come back here again."
I guess, yeah, I guess that works too. I guess that comedy club, if they're not running a good business, then
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you learn how much you're supposed to be getting paid, and realize you were underpaid, and then you just grow from there.
yes. So then it's like you kind of learn your value
Yeah, pretty much.
more. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I haven't learned yet. So
Hmm. It comes with the time, is the money thing.
yes, that's what I keep on hearing when most of my guests are comics.
Hmm.
And they're like, just give it time. I'm like, if I must,
Definitely.
I'll give it time. But have there been a lot of clubs where you've been like, I'm not going back here. Like, no matter what happens, I'm never stepping back here.
No, not really. Just it really just depends on how far the drive is and how much the pay is. That's really it.
Does your agent kind of set that up for you, or
Sometimes it depends on the gig. It's a mix of stuff. Sometimes she does, and then other times they just contact me directly.
and then you just okay? Well, I guess you don't have to pay your agent then.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
keep it all. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's that's what I've heard from all these actors. It's like, if I don't need to use my agent, I'm not using my agent.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think it's a good balance between relying on them for stuff and getting your own stuff.
Isn't one of the trade-offs also, I've heard also, it's like, but maybe my agent could have made me more money.
Yeah, definitely. But depends on the gig. If it's like a $200 gig, they probably won't budge over like $50.
Yeah, I can see that. In my head, I was thinking about acting too, where it's like bigger contracts.
Yeah, bigger stuff they will. So, but you won't also, you rarely will get a big acting thing just through you.
Yeah, I don't think that happens at all, or like almost never. That doesn't, because there's so much like I guess it'd just be bureaucracy.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for bringing me back in.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I at a certain point, I was like, what am I doing with my life?
no, nothing. But I do have to go. But thank you so much for having me.
Yes, for sure. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Maddy Smith, for coming on to my podcast. Thank you for letting me bother you. Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm at Maddy Smith on Instagram, where I will post um, shows and info about my podcast. So check me out there.
And your website or just Instagram?
Just go to Instagram. Website has the same info on it.
Okay, so Maddy Smith on Instagram, podcast, shows, everything you need to know is right there. Thank you for listening to Volume Strangers. Thank you to my guest, Maddy Smith, and have a good one, everyone.